All right, so I'm Melissa, like she said. I'm with Health Diagnostic Lab, and we're going to talk about winning the battle of the bulge. I do have my master's in nutrition and also my bachelor's in nutrition as well, so you guys know my background. All right, so when we talk about the battle of the bulge, let's talk about that battle first. What are we struggling with? So the battlefield, what are we fighting? Food is plentiful. How many times, if you guys are watching TV, do you see the food ad? What, every 5 minutes? Every time that the show goes on a commercial break, there's at least 10 food ads. And are they healthy food ads? No. It's for fast food. It's for sugary cereals. It's all for that, the junk. Food is plentiful. Food is everywhere. We just talked about commercials, on billboard signs, on street corners. At every turn, you are basically going to be tempted at some sort of food. Food is everywhere. All right, processed food. Processed food is what we are going to see in those commercials, what we are going to see on those billboards. I'm sure everyone here goes to the grocery store. What is about 90% of in the grocery store? What are we finding? Examples. Processed. All right. I mean, if you stick to the outside of the grocery store, which we talked about in the last lunch and learn that we're here, you're going to get more of those whole foods. But the majority of the food that's going down those aisles, processed. The ingredient list is going to be a mile long, and we're not going to know what half those things are. Right. And they're coming out with so many different things nowadays. Has anyone seen, this is me on my soapbox, has anyone seen those Who Knew cookies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. The Who Knew cookies? Junk food trying to be healthy. And on the package it says, you know, as much iron as spinach and as much, you know, vitamin C as blueberries. I'm like, why aren't you eating those foods? Why aren't you eating the blueberries and the spinach? Go straight to the source. So processed food, there's tons of it. Eateries are not in businesses for your health. A lot of times even in like hospitals, this is an example, hospitals, you've got like McDonald's, you know, in hospitals nowadays. So that's supposed to be a place that's for your health, but it's not really showing you that. All right, misery loves company, and you are in good company, unfortunately. All right, so that's the battlefield. That it's definitely what we are fighting with on an everyday basis, right? It never goes away. It's not going to go away. So it is a battlefield. All right, so you know how we talked about that processed food? Well, processed food does have an effect on our insulin. What is insulin? It's produced by the pancreas when we eat food. We're eating right now, we're intaking, our body will produce insulin because our food, even our vegetables and our potatoes, it's going to turn into sugar. So that sugar needs to be taken up by the cells because it's energy, we need it. What it's going to do, body's going to produce insulin to say, hey cells, you've got some sugar, you've got some fuel, take it up. So what happens with our processed foods? All right, we have this insulin kind of spike, all right? Your body is producing too much insulin because you're having a high blood sugar spike from the processed food, which does not promote the fat from breaking down. So you're eating processed food, high blood sugar, high levels of insulin, promoting fat storage. And where is it going to be stored mainly? Right here. And this is where we don't want it to be stored. Why? What's in here that we don't want it to be stored?
Heart right here.
Heart, vital organs, liver. I mean, there's tons of vital things right in the abdomen area where if we're getting lots of excess fat storage, it can be very dangerous for our health. Okay? So high levels of insulin does promote fat storage. That is not what we want. So sticking to those whole foods where we're eating right now, you're going to be having a slower breakdown of your food, and it's not going to cause that insulin spike. All right, so we talked about sugar. Our body needs sugar, right? What we're eating right now, it's going to be turned into sugar. It's our number one fuel source. So if anyone ever tells you that carbs are bad, tell them to talk to me. Okay? We need carbohydrates. And carbohydrates turned into sugar in the body. So, what's the difference between this orange and some of these jelly beans? All right? You've got the nutrients here. Even though it's the same amount of sugar, 0 nutrients compared to lots of nutrients. Vitamins, minerals, fiber, even protein. Did you guys know fruit had protein in it? Vegetables has protein. So, where your jelly beans, what is that going to cause? It's going to cause that high insulin spike, leading to that fat storage around the midsection. When you eat this orange, that fiber, those minerals, they're going to break down slower, not giving you that such high of an insulin spike. All right, so a lot of people forget about beverages. So let's look at some calorie-dense beverages compared to 0 calories. All right, that's a lot of calories in just our beverages too, right? Now these are out in 8-ounce servings. It's a lot. 8 to 16 ounces right here. 0 calories, unsweetened coffee or tea, seltzer water, water flavored with either. Who would rather eat their calories? I know I do. I would rather eat my calories than drink them. What are these calorie-dense beverages going to produce? We just talked about it. Very high levels of insulin. So again, another reason that we don't want beverages, go that belly fat. All right. So you guys might have heard about leptin or ghrelin, but these are hormones produced by the body. It is our satiety hormone. Satiety meaning feeling full. Okay? So chronic high fructose corn syrup consumption can actually reduce or cause leptin resistance. So those processed foods that we talked about at the beginning, what is it going to be super high in? High fructose corn syrup. And I do want to mention that even if the product doesn't say high fructose corn syrup, it might say fructose and corn sugar, same thing. Okay? So that can cause leptin resistance, meaning we want to eat more. Again, causing high blood sugar levels, high insulin spikes, leading to an excess fat accumulation. This also may be associated with inflammation. When we have really high amounts of sugar in our diet, it can cause inflammation, which, if we're at risk for cardiovascular disease, that's really troublesome. Because inflammation is where we run into increased risk for. So, but that's another story. All right, so like I said before, it does cause us to overeat. So we don't have this leptin, it's being resisted. We're eating more, getting more blood sugar, getting more insulin, causing more fat storage. All right, inadequate sleep. We've been getting good amount of sleep, right? 7 to 9 hours. I'm good. Some of you are like, oh no. It's very, very, very important. And when I say, 7 to 9 hours, that means a solid 2-hour blocks here and there. That doesn't really, it's not the same. All right, so it increases our stress hormones. Does anyone know what stress hormone I'm talking about? Cortisol. Cortisol is that stress hormone that our inadequate sleep is going to increase. And actually, we will talk about that. More likely to snack on high-calorie foods. And the reason this is because it increases hunger hormones, ghrelin, and decreases our satiety hormone. They actually did a study looking at individuals who got 4 hours of sleep compared to individuals who got 6. And the individuals who got 6 actually consumed less calories because of their leptin levels. All right, so like I said, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and that's solid sleep. Have a bedtime routine. You've all heard it, no reading in bed or watching TV in bed. Our bedroom should be a place of sleeping, and that should be it. They always say that you're much more likely to sleep easier and for longer if that's kind of the strategy that you use. All right. And some individuals do suffer from sleep apnea, where they actually might stop breathing at night. But if you think that that's an issue, that's definitely something to bring up to your physician. All right, so we did talk about cortisol. So when we don't get as much sleep as we should, cortisol is increased. Cortisol is a fat-storing hormone, okay? Chronic stress, inadequate sleep, and Cushing syndrome are all things that can lead that levels go up. All right, vitamin D deficiency. Has anyone heard that vitamin D actually acts more like a hormone instead of, just needing to take a multivitamin? So we need to get adequate amount of vitamin D because it is associated with a normal body weight, but low levels have been associated with body weight gain. And also, low levels or a deficiency in vitamin D has been linked with cardiovascular disease. So that's why it's also very important in that as well. You can get vitamin D in the sun. Does anyone know of a food?
No.
It is fortified in milk. Doesn't really come naturally. Does anyone know of a natural food source for vitamin D? I'm sorry?
Anything green?
Greens?
Broccoli.
How about mushrooms? Mushrooms is actually got tons of vitamin D. So that's a really good natural food source to get your vitamin D in.
What would be another one? I don't know. I hate mushrooms.
Good old sunlight. Good old sunlight, yep. But, I mean, there are lots of foods nowadays that are fortified with vitamin D, like milk. But your best source is going to be taking a walk for 15 minutes outside. They actually say for women to not paint their nails because it actually soaks up in the nail beds more than really anywhere. All right. We've been talking about a lot of processed food, so let's keep going. Simple carbohydrates, they're rapidly digested, may cause an opiate-like effect in some people. Has anyone ever heard that I just gotta have it? It's like it's pulling me towards it. I just gotta have that food. Well, it's because it does have an opiate-like effect. Our sugars, our salt, and our fat can actually cause the same pleasure signals in the brain that nicotine does, that drugs do. So that is why we feel so compelled and almost addicted to these foods. Is it reversible? Yes, it is. So don't feel like you're stuck for the rest of your life on these Snickers bars. You can break the habit, I'm telling you. It also increases your appetite. It's that same thing that we've been talking about with the rapid rise in your blood sugar. If it rises pretty quickly, what's it going to do? It's also going to fall really quickly, and it's also going to fall below normal levels. So you even might feel weak or shaky. You're like, what's going on? I just ate not too long ago. Well, you just had this super high blood sugar, surge, and it fell super fast. So you have to eat again. So it kind of creates this cycle. All right? And then you got the good cop and bad cop there too. All right. So of course, aging does have an effect as well. As we age, unfortunately, our metabolism does slower. Loss of muscle mass. These two can actually go together. Why does your metabolism have an effect with your muscle mass? Well, your resting metabolic rate, or how many calories your body burns by being alive or sitting down or sleeping, depends on your muscle mass. So if you burn 1,000 calories just by being alive, as we age, we're losing that muscle mass, so maybe it might go down to 800. So if we're eating the same amount of foods and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight, why is this? It's because we might be losing some of that muscle mass. That's why they say, for women especially, it is so important to do some type of strength training so we can maintain that lean muscle mass. I promise you, you're not going to get big and bulky. We don't have the hormones for that, okay? But it is important to maintain lean muscle mass. Okay? Also, we do have less activity as we get older if we, stop working or have a sedentary job, more sedentary leisure time as well. And you guys can stop me at any time, and if you have a question, just let me know. All right, so, we've been talking about the battle. Bad habits being part of that battle. Eating out of the bag. How many times have we eaten out of the bag and before we know it, it's gone? Yep. Chips, one of the biggest culprits for that. Eating while doing another activity. Who's eating while driving? Yep. Not setting a time for an actual meal. And you might actually notice that if you're sitting down to a meal, you might eat less because you're actually focusing on what you're doing and you're not mindlessly eating. Okay? Eating food in sight, candy bowls, at work or at home. Yep, absolutely. I knew a physician, he said, I think my wife's trying to kill me. We've got a candy bowl over here, we've got a candy bowl over here. And he's like, I know that she knows. I'm going to eat it. So he switched it to fruit and he lost weight. All right, eating when you're not hungry, late night snacking. Who's done that? I mean, all of us, right? Eating when we're not hungry, when we're watching a movie. We just had dinner, so we're not necessarily hungry. So these are all things that if we work on them, we're not going to have those high blood sugar spikes. We're not going to have those high insulin spikes. Again, controlling the bulge. Who has a lot of, diet, I don't like that word. And we should feel that way about the word diet. Because when we talk about battle of the bulge and when we talk about grocery shopping or really anything when it comes to weight, healthy lifestyle, that's what it should be. It should be more of a lifestyle. So instead of thinking, I want to go on this diet and I'm going to lose 5 pounds, it's, what, I think I might make some little bit, better choices here and there that overall I can keep up with. And you'll be surprised down the road, not even trying to lose weight, you probably will. So it's just changing that mentality. All right, forbidden foods. That's another one that gets us in trouble. When we have that mentality of, nope, not eating that, can't eat that, can't eat that, can't eat that. Find a substitute. Even if, you're trying to lose weight and that piece of cake looks so good, why don't you make your own cake? Make it with applesauce instead of oil. You could do a frosting out of dates. There's all kinds of different things that you could do to make it healthier where you're not forbidding anything, but also you're allowing yourself to have that. It's not going to be an everyday occurrence, but you're not restricting to where maybe later down the road you're going to have a binge fest, because that's what can happen. The all or none, good or bad, basically go hand in hand. Same thing with forbidden foods. When we kind of label those types of things, we have a tendency more to overindulge later. The inconsistency, giving up during plateaus. Has anyone ever tried to lose weight and have gotten to a plateau? Like, this just isn't working. I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to go have, some Burger King, and it'll make me feel better. And then what happens, you do go end up having Burger King, and then you feel worse. So giving up during plateaus, that's when you should push the most, push the most hard, basically. All right? Too much cheating. And that's when we say too much cheating, that's when someone does have that all or nothing or good or bad type of mentality, and they have restricted themselves so much that they're like, oh, I'm just going to have this little bit. And then a few weeks ago, I'm just going to have this little bit too. But it's not just a little bit. They'll have a big portion. All right, getting off track and staying off track. Basically, same thing as giving up. And when we talk about all these things, again, it goes back to the whole, it should be more of a lifestyle. So we talked about the battlefield. Now let's talk about the strategy, how we're going to, how we can combat this. So be it intentional, be aware. We talked about eating while driving. We're not we're not aware of what we're eating. We're not aware of what we're putting in our mouth. Or if we're watching TV while we eat, are we paying attention to the food? Are we tasting it? Are we smelling it? Probably not. So when we're not aware, we are much more likely to just mindlessly eat and not realize maybe I'm not hungry anymore. Set realistic goals. So if someone does want to lose weight, what's a realistic goal? Okay. So if we wanted to lose 2 pounds a week, a pound to 2 pounds a week, setting something small to get there is your easiest thing. When people say, I want to, lose 50 pounds, what are you going to do to lose 50 pounds? That's when people kind of get off track when they try to set goals. They're like, I want to lose 50 pounds. How are you going to do it? Okay, well, let's think about it this way. I eat fast food every day. I drink lots of soda. So a realistic goal would be, I'm not going to have any soft drinks anymore. That's a realistic goal. Okay? Evaluate and modify goals that aren't working. If you've told yourself that I'm going to lose 10 pounds for the past 10 years, it's not working. There's something that needs to be readjusted. Goals become new habits. Has anyone heard that if you do something, 21 days in a row, it becomes a habit? So if you, for instance, say, I'm going to write down what I have for breakfast every day, and you start 21 days, then that becomes a habit. Then you might add lunch into there. So it just becomes easier and easier and easier. All right, be realistic about rate of loss. So, for instance, that 2 pounds a week, a pound to 2 pounds a week is realistic. If someone's like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds this week, that's not healthy. Do they do it on The Biggest Loser? Yeah, they do, but they have a team of medical doctors, and they're eating like 1 plate of food a day. Just kidding, I don't know what they're eating, but that's not realistic in the real world. So a pound to 2 a week, that is realistic. But at the same time, how we talked about setting those goals and being specific, you can't just say, I want to lose a pound to 2 a week. What are you going to do to get there? That's what we have to realize. All right, accept plateaus as the norm. We have to accept plateaus, and we also have to accept that we might relapse. Same thing that people go through when trying to quit smoking, for instance. You have to realize that there is a good possibility you might relapse, and it's not the end of the world. You know? You just get back on your horse and you keep going. What people do is that they focus so much on the negative, and they do have those stinking thinking moments, and that's what leads them to give up, is their own personal thoughts about themselves as a failure. And that's what we have to get away from. Say, you know, yep, I did have soda today, but you know what? I know I'm not going to have one tomorrow, and that's all right. Battle strategy. So when we're eating, we definitely want to focus on two things, quantity and quality. When I say quantity, obviously that's the amount. Quality meaning the types of food. Quality, does it have vitamins and minerals? Does it have fiber? Those are the types of things that we want to focus on when thinking about quality. Okay, so there's lots of ways that we can track of what we're eating. We did talk about maybe writing what we eat for breakfast every day. A lot of people find that tracking can help with weight loss because they might not realize how many calories that they are consuming. Once you do maybe track for a week or two, you might realize, okay, I know that this has a certain amount of calories, so I probably don't need to track it every single day. But starting off that way can be very helpful. Counting calories, plate planner, or an online tracker can all be things that you can use.
Do you have an online tracker that you recommend? Is there an app that you
There,
particularly like?
Lose It is one. That's a great one.
Okay.
That's one. The main one that I primarily recommend is Lose It. Lose It has a phone app and a website. So.
I've used, and I really like MyFitnessPal.
Yeah,
It has the little
yeah.
app too. It breaks down into your nutrients and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard of MyFitnessPal too. Yeah, that's a good one. So, all right, so we do have a balancing act, energy that we do intake and our energy expended. And what makes up the energy that we do expend? Our resting calories. What did we talk about makes up of our resting calories? How much lean muscle that we have makes up our resting calories. Any type of activity, if you go exercise, if you go take a 15-minute walk, that's definitely going to add to that activity. And then exercise, again. Also our thermic effect of food. Your body burns calories by breaking down what you just ate. So that's another thing that does go into how many calories our body is burning. All right. So for weight loss, we should kind of have a little tilt in the energy that we intake and the energy that is expended. Okay, so counting calories. And you don't have to necessarily, read on all of the labels. That could be a little bit tedious, but there are lots of different softwares out there, MyFitnessPal or Lose It, that has a very big database with different foods that you could easily plug in there. Okay, but this is just a simple way to do it if you wanted, not to even think about that. If you wanted to stick with around 1,500 calories for women and around 2,000 calories for men. And that'll, you lose about half a pound to a pound a week. Because in order to burn a pound, it's 3,500 calories. So if you subtract 1,500 calories from your daily intake, that's going to be about a pound a week. If you wanted to just do 250 and 250 from exercise, if you took an hour of Zumba, for instance, you'd probably be burning more than that. So that's another way to look at it as well. And also, we have one as well. All right, so online trackers are a really easy way to help keep accountability of that quantity that we talked about. Quantity and quality being very, very important. Many of these are interactive, so you can use it on your phone. I know a lot of people, you know, when you're out, you want to be able to do it and not have to do it at home. There's also another one, it's called Calorie King. It has a lot of different restaurants. So if you're like, oh man, I don't know what to get here because I don't know how many calories is in it. Well, you can go to Calorie King and you can see, I'm at this restaurant, how many calories does this have in it specifically? If you, for instance, forgot to do it at home, because a lot of them that do have it on their website. Okay. So yeah, MyFitnessPal uses it. Spark People does have it. Fit Day. So there's lots of different places that you can go to. So what do we track when we put our food in? Total calories, fiber. This is what the most thing we are lacking in, or the most Western diet is lacking in. Because if you think about it, in animal foods, how much fiber is there in animal foods? 0. All right. Skeleton holds up animals. Fiber holds up plants. So that's what we want to make sure that we do get enough of. Fiber is going to help keep us full. It's going to help cholesterol. It's going to help weight loss. It's going to help with a lot of things. And then trans fat should be 0. A lot of times there can be sneaky amounts of trans fat in there that will quickly add up. So when we plug it in, you're like, how do I have 3 grams of trans fat when all my food products said 0? Well, you know, the food companies can legally say that it is 0 grams of trans fat and you can have up to ½ gram. So that's why it's important to make sure we don't have any. Has anyone seen the Choose My Plate at all? If you don't want to count calories, that's okay. You can kind of put your plate like that. You're not necessarily having to measure. As long as your plate kind of has that balance, then you should be good. All right, so our fruits, they're going to be low in fat. They're going to be low in sodium. Most of them are going to be pretty low in calories. You're not going to have any cholesterol coming from your fruit. And it's got tons of potassium, fiber, vitamin C, all of those quality nutrients that we want. All right, so right here we do have our good healthy vitamins and minerals. They're not going to be any trans fat in these, but it's some of the good healthy fats. If you notice, there's actually some greens in there. Pretty much all of our food does have fat in it, even our greens. Whoopsie. Even our greens. Even ground flaxseed. Has anyone ever heard of ground flaxseed? Yeah. Ground flaxseed has what is called omega-3. And omega-3 is a good anti-inflammatory. So it is essential, but it's also a very good fat. All right, grains. This should make up 1/4 of your plate, but we want it to be whole grains. Anytime you go to the grocery store, we want to see 100% or whole. Also, if we do a rice, try brown rice. Has anyone ever heard of quinoa? Quinoa is a great, I don't think I'm hitting that. Great grain source. It actually does have more protein and fiber than our brown rice. So, not saying that brown rice is bad, it's good, but our quinoa actually does have a little bit more nutrients. And it has all of the essential amino acids to it as well. Lots of fiber. All right, so dairy, it does have calcium and vitamin D, even fortified. And it does have carbohydrate and protein together. All right, so protein, if you do put protein here, then it should be consisting of 1/4 of your plate. If everyone looks at their palm, that's what your portion size should be. If you don't eat meat, beans, legumes can go right there. But when we do choose a protein, it should be of the leaner variety. Fish, chicken. All right. So by filling your plate with 50% fruits and vegetables, you're ultimately going to have a higher volume of food but less calories. Also, if you eat your fruits and vegetables first, you're probably going to fill up much more quickly than if you ate, your starch first. Because fruits and vegetables take up a lot of room in the stomach. All right, and those are those good quality foods that we want to make sure we're getting enough of. And if we try to get that type of plate planner at lunch and at dinner, we're probably going to be getting the recommended amount of vegetables for the day. Because that's the one thing that people don't get enough of, are vegetables. Okay, so you are trying to get the right amount of calories for weight loss, but not sacrifice nutrition. And this is what some people think, that they have to starve themselves to lose weight. And that's not necessarily, definitely not the case. We want to make sure that we're not sacrificing anything. We should be filling our plate. We don't want to be hungry. And a lot of people are scared to get hungry when they're losing weight. Oh my gosh, I just ate like 3 hours ago. I can't be hungry yet. That's okay. Have a snack. Have some carrots and hummus. That's fine. We want to make sure that we are getting the nutrients. Okay? So, best way to do this, fill half of every plate, breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, fruits, and vegetables. When you look down at your plate, anytime we eat, we want to either see a fruit or a vegetable there. Okay? When we're eating just either carbs or, those simple carbs by themselves, that's when we start gaining weight. And it's not going to give us the success we want. For instance, have you ever seen those 100-calorie packs? Yes. It's 100 calories, but is that going to help us succeed? What nutrients does it have in it? That's what we need to ask ourselves when we are about to put something in our mouth. Number one, am I hungry? And number two, what is this going to give me? Is this going to give me fiber? Is this going to give me vitamins and minerals? If those are both no, scoot it to the side. Alright, so you will have lots of nutrients-dense foods if you do make half your plate vegetables and fruits. You definitely won't be lacking in the vitamins and minerals or the fiber. Alright, so even though you're eating the right quantity of calories for weight loss, the quality to me is the most important part. We just talked about those 100-calorie packs. Sure, you might be getting the right quantity, but there's no quality to that. Alright, so when people say, I'm not going to have carbs to lose weight, is that really the best choice? You need to ask yourself, is that something I can stay on for the rest of my life? Just eating bacon? Probably not. Some of you might say, yeah, sure, I can totally live off bacon for the rest of my life. But are we going to get, the fiber and the vitamins and minerals that we need? No. So a lot of people, they might say, oh, I'm going to go on the Atkins diet, my favorite one to hear about. And what's going to happen? Will they lose weight? Yes. They will lose weight. Will they keep it off? Absolutely not. Will they be at a higher risk for osteoporosis? Yes. Eating all that protein, animal protein, causes calcium to leach from our bones. So by eliminating carbohydrates completely from the diet, you can cause some of those things to happen. And again, it's not a lifestyle. Atkins diet is not a lifestyle that you can follow forever. So by doing the plate, where you have that moderation of everything, is going to help not only lose weight, but maintain that. All right. So refined carbs, we've been talking about these a lot. So carbs do come naturally in a lot of our foods, but what are the simple carbs? What are the refined carbs? White breads, white pastas, white rice, pastries, cookies, cakes, chips. You know, everyone's thinking, oh my gosh, those are my favorites. Don't tell me that. But like we talked about before, there are substitutes. If you like cake, there is a healthier way to make it, as long as we're not eating it every day. All right, so how to avoid them. When we read our nutrition label, which we all should, we want to make sure that it has at least 3 grams of fiber per serving. Okay, you know, whether it's our pasta or our rice, we want to make sure that it has at least 3 grams of fiber per serving. Even our cereals, a lot of our cereals are probably just going to be that simple carb. It's going to turn to sugar immediately in the body. So, an easy way, look at the fiber and also look at the sugar. Another good way to kind of reduce it, make sure it doesn't have more than 6 grams of sugar per serving. All right, so are these smart snacks? You sure you want that snack? So, this is fun because we get to look at some people's favorite foods and how much we would need to exercise to burn it off. Five Guys fries, 9 ounce, 620 calories. That is minus the burger, minus the Coke. All right, so you'd have to bicycle for 1 hour and 35 minutes at 9 miles an hour. Okay, a Starbucks, it's getting cold. This is everyone's weakness right now. Cinnamon dolce latte with the whipped cream, 410 calories. I know it. Doesn't it just hurt your heart? Yeah.
What if you get it skinny?
You know, it definitely would probably knock it down.
40 minutes of jogging.
Instead of 50, right? 50 minutes of jogging. All right, popcorn, and that is no added butter. No added butter. 410 calories. You'd have to do aerobics for 1 hour and 15 minutes. That Panera chocolate chip cookie, 440 calories, and you would have to walk for 1 hour and 30 minutes at 3.5 miles per hour.
And they're always trying to give those to you for free.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. So if you had a sandwich and, you know, soup and a drink on top of that, and then you had a cookie, that's probably close to 2,000 calories right there. All right. All right, some more. Red velvet cupcake, 500 calories. You'd have to strength train for over 2 hours. Again, going back to Starbucks, a banana nut loaf, almost 500 calories. You would have to swim for over an hour, hour and 15 minutes. Smoothie King smoothie. This is the Slim and Trim strawberry. 560 calories. For medium, that's not even the large, that's for the medium. And you'd have to play doubles tennis for 1 hour and 50 minutes. And people's favorite pink berry, the original frozen yogurt, that's without the toppings. 370 calories. And on the elliptical for over an hour. So now that kind of puts that in our head. You have a question?
Oh, no, I was going to say, so if I eat like that, I have to do a triathlon every day.
Every day. Every day. Yep, you sure would. But, I mean, if you're training like Michael Phelps, then I guess you do need the calories. But should be coming from those quality sources. Remember, are there any quality sources coming from these foods? Probably not. A lot of sugar, that's what it's going to come from. All right, so it also is very important to limit those saturated fats. That saturated fat is that artery clogging fat that we really don't want. Where is it going to be found? A lot of our dairy, like our cheeses, very concentrated sources of saturated fat. Red meats, animal shortenings, all of these things need to be very limited in order to avoid those saturated fats. So a good rule of thumb, how to limit this, try to keep saturated fat less than 7% of total calories. And if you're tracking, that's definitely something that it can track for you, is saturated fat. Okay, so we've got foods in the unhealthy fats compared to food in the unhealthy carbohydrates. So these are things that we definitely want to skip over when we're at the grocery store. So fatty cuts of meat, bacon, sausage, anything with the skin, like your poultry with the skin, butter, cream or half and half, lots of butter, cocoa butter, and a lot of our pastries are going to be extremely high in fat. And what kind of fat? It's probably going to be the trans fat that we're going to find in our pastries. So those good old pastries that we find at the Starbucks probably got some trans fat in there.
What about coconut oil? We have oil, but what about coconut oil? Is that included in that list?
Coconut oil is very high in saturated fat. There is mixed opinions on coconut oil. They say coconut oil is more of a medium chain triglyceride, so it is digested differently in the body. But others still find it as it's still a fat and it's still saturated. So there are mixed opinions on it. Anytime that we can limit oils altogether, down to a minimum, is beneficial. All right. So foods high in the unhealthy carbs. We have talked a lot about this today. Those sodas and fruit drinks, even our 100% juices we want to limit, because is it going to have the fiber that the fruit will? No. Where it still might get you some vitamins and minerals, it's not going to get you the fiber, and it's just going to raise your blood sugar higher than necessary. Yeah?
What if you made a smoothie, put all that in it though, and just made it like a juice, but you had your peeling in it and your the whole fruit in it, but it just, does that count?
Now with a smoothie, if you're doing the whole fruit, it will digest a little bit more quickly than if you had just the fruit itself, but it won't digest as quickly as for, say, juice, because you're not getting the fiber. So it's juice, a smoothie, and then the whole piece of fruit. So does that answer your question?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Even if you threw some ground flaxseed in there into a smoothie, it would help it digest even slower, because you've got the fat and you've got the protein from the ground flaxseed to help it digest slowly.
Or even add nuts in it, or
Sure.
some kind of,
Yep. Or even some like peanut butter.
yeah.
Yeah. But all natural peanut butter.
natural.
Yeah. You got me. You're gonna get me all the
butter.
Yeah, or almond butter. Absolutely. Yep. Those are some good things to do. All right. So we've basically got, you guys know what the unhealthy carbohydrates are. Okay. So we haven't really, talked about exercise that much, and where a lot of people might think, okay, so I want to get this flat right, so I'm going to do like 1,000 crunches a day. Probably not. We've actually focused on what's going to help with this the most already. And that's getting rid of those refined carbohydrates from your diet. Whereas exercise definitely is going to help. But is it the main thing that is going to contribute to losing weight? No. And people get that wrong. They get it flip-flopped. They're like, I'm going to eat whatever I want and exercise, and I'll be okay. It doesn't work like that. Exercise does not erase what you put in your mouth. Where it can be great for cardiovascular benefits, not going to erase that donut. All right, so it is going to increase our calorie expenditure. When you do yoga or Pilates, you might increase that lean muscle mass. So you're going to increase your resting metabolic rate. So a good way to increase our calorie expenditure. You decrease your disease risk. Again, it does help, remove cholesterol from the body. It helps increase our good cholesterol. Has the potential to change body composition. We talked about that as well by increasing that lean muscle mass. And it's just a good stress reliever. I don't know about you guys, but if you have had a bad day, you go for a walk, or you go take a yoga class, or Pilates, or Zumba. You might walk out of that feeling 10 times better. All right. You should keep a few things in mind if you're, exercising for weight loss. Cardiovascular exercise, something that you want to remember. Use this speak, not sing method to assess intensity, especially if your doctor wants you to kind of stay at a heart rate. You should be able to maybe have a conversation, but not be able to sing when you're on the treadmill, for instance. So it's a good way. You don't have to look at heart rate or what percentage am I in. If you can speak, but you can't sing, that's a good range to be in. All right? And then strength training, great way to increase lean muscle mass. And if you don't want to go for free weights or whatever, go do the machines. That's fine. Or you can even use your own body weight. You're born with the perfect gym right here. So use your own body weight. It's free. All right, so all activity are great. You should still keep a few things in mind. Flexibility. Flexibility is absolutely important because it does help prevent our risk for injury, for when we go do that strength training, for when we go do that yoga. Well, yoga is flexibility training, but if we ever do like a higher intensity exercise, this flexibility training is going to help us prevent that injury. Okay? Mind and body. Again, yoga or Pilates, perfect exercises for this mind and body connection. It's going to help not only tone your body, but also help up here. It's going to help reduce that stress, which will overall help cortisol levels, and it's a ripple effect. Okay? All right, a few more helpful tips. If you're not tracking calories, keeping a food log, that can always help your awareness. I have a lot of patients who do just come in with their food logs. They write down what they eat, and it's easier because I can actually see, what they have been consuming. It also helps your awareness of what you're putting in your mouth. You're like, well, I didn't even realize I ate that whole bag of chips. I better write that down. Oopsie, So it does keep you more aware. All right. A lot of patients I found, they like taking pictures of their food. Most people have cameras on their phone, and it's not as tedious as writing something down. So the picture method can also be very effective. Don't forget, drinks count too. We did go over at the very beginning all those calorie-laden beverages. They can add up very quickly. And even if you're not exercising regularly, considering adding extra activity. This could be parking at the furthest spot when you go to the grocery store, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. If you sit down a lot during the day, getting up every hour just for 10 minutes and stretching or, walking around, just standing up can be helpful. Also, try to surround yourself with positive people. If you might be trying to lose weight and you're like, you have a friend that's like, oh, that's stupid, then they need to realize that that is important for you. So you do have to surround yourself with positive people who are going to help you through that process. All right. You can even make a club at lunch where you take a 20-minute walk. You'd be surprised at how many extra calories you can burn just by doing a little bit of added walking. All right. And then you can use us. I'm here anytime you guys ever have questions. If you need tips or recipes, that's what we're here for. All right, so making some changes. Take small steps. If you don't want to dive in the deep end, that's a-okay. Some people, a very small amount of people that works for, but for the majority of us, it's that small steps that's going to get us to our end goal. So like I said before, trying to cut out soda, and then a few weeks later or a month later, you add another goal. So it's that small steps that add up that are going to make a big difference. Okay, take the steps that will make the biggest difference. Don't worry about food you may eat 2 times a year. Look at common patterns. Don't worry about the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. You have that twice a year. Look at what you're doing daily. All right, be patient. We did not put weight on overnight, so it is not going to come off overnight. That's what we have to keep telling ourselves, because a lot of people want that rapid weight loss, and that's not healthy. That's not going to be a lifestyle, and we're not going to maintain it. All right? And of course, avoid the all or nothing thinking. That's one of the worst that we can do to ourselves. It's not going to help us in our process. So I'm ending with this quote, and I actually do have a PDF of this, so if you guys want it and put it up somewhere, I can definitely send it to you. Wellness isn't about deprivation, and it's not about perfection. It is about pointing yourself in the direction of growth, training yourself to get comfortable with your highest potential, and then taking small steps to support that shift. It's about showing up for yourself day by day, and then one day finding that you've undergone a transformation.